Black Minds Matter is a national movement to celebrate excellence in education. And I'm really excited to share it with you guys because I believe that this new iteration, this new message on school choice and this new narrative can really help to move the needle forward in education. And so our mission is to nourish Black minds with a rich education by any means necessary. Our essence and our being deserve life. And so some of the things that we demand, one, keeping with the exact same messages of school choice, is to make sure every student in America receives a free, high quality education in a safe school environment beyond the singular one the government assigns. Because all kids, all students deserve excellence in education. We also want to promote and highlight the outcomes of school choice programs because choice programs, when it comes to African American students, and we'll get into it a little bit later, have higher outcomes than their public school counterparts. And then also the last thing is to make sure that we're cultivating and highlighting the diversity in the school options that are available for Black students in America. And I'll kick it over to Walter.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having us on to have this discussion and present. And for the past 30 years or so, school choice has been sweeping the nation in different forms across the country. And at first, it was a group of advocates, group of supporters who disbelieved in this idea, right? That the public education system was not cutting it when it came to our young Black scholars. And so people like Dr. Howard Fuller and some of these great legends that we often talk about in this movement fought for a lot of different things and laid the groundwork for what we're doing here today. And now the narrative has changed, and it's super, super interesting because now we're in a time where the kids, the students who benefited from those policies, from those educational opportunities have grown up and they've taken it upon themselves to carry the torch, and it's their turn to take the baton and run their leg of the race. And so one thing that we've done at AFC is really mobilized and pushed the next generation of leaders in this movement. And so one way we do that is with our Voices for Choice initiative. We have 700 plus success stories across the entire country from students who've benefited from various school choice policies nationwide. And so, and each one of them on our website has a profile, as just like the one you see here of myself rocking the preschool look with the cowboy hat. I had the Texas attire down before I even got here. But it's so interesting because these are the beneficiaries. These are the students who've benefited. Their lives are changed, and now they are joining in the fight to fight for more kids to have those same kind of opportunities that they did. And then on a deeper level, about 2 years ago, we started the Future Leaders Fellowship program, and it goes a little bit deeper than Voices for Choice, and we take anywhere from 7 to 10 school choice beneficiaries across the country, and we take them through what I like to call the policy boot camp of school choice. We teach them the differences between a charter school and a private school and a public school, and the difference between a tax credit or an ESA or a voucher. And we take their story and we weaponize it, but then we also equip them with the policy knowledge, right? How to engage with policymakers, how to share their story in a compelling way. Because at the end of the day, there's no better advocate for something like this than the people who are benefiting from it, right? And so when I talk about my own story, my own life, Denisha does the same thing. We are the ones who are living a better life and are in the fight because of these kinds of policies. And so it's super important to continue that work and continue that cycle. I say often, all the time, that I'm trying to work myself out of a job here. And I think Denisha and I are doing a pretty good job of that. And so these are ways that we should be utilizing success stories, students across the country, to really build them up, to have a loud and strong presence in this movement moving forward.
And that's what brings us to Black Minds Matter. This is another weapon, as Walter put it, another new school choice narrative that we hope will continue, like the Voices for Choice initiative and the Future Leaders Fellowship, to sweep across the country. And of course, we have it messaged really powerfully for everyone to utilize. Black Minds Matter. And I'll just, start off by giving a little bit history. And I like to say that I became involved in this work way before it has literally been way before the Black Lives Matter movement, before this new initiative that I founded, Black Minds Matter. I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, failed the 3rd grade twice, going to my zoned public school. And it wasn't until my godmother found a scholarship program for me to go to a small private school that my life changed for the better. And so I went from making D's and F's to A's and B's constantly, and became the first in my family to graduate from high school, to go to college, and then earn a master's degree. And so I saw personally in my family that I came from a long line of high school dropouts. I came from a long line of people who didn't really value education. And so when the protest this last summer, last summer we were, Black Minds Matter, that's where it all began. It began when I penned an op-ed called Black Minds Matter, to draw those lines between the institutional injustices that take place in the education system and how they're similar to the ones that take place in the criminal justice system. And how education, in my opinion, and I would hope it's the opinion of many others across the country, if we really fix the issues in the education system, we could fix a lot of other issues and across the country. And liberating minds and providing students with a high quality education of their parents' choice is the first step to making sure that we don't have to deal with some of the other institutional inequities across the country. And so that's how Black Minds Matter began, just an op-ed exploring this correlation between Black Lives Matter and Black Minds Matter, and how some of the same, I would say, the force behind the social movement should be in the education movement. And I tell you about my personal story at first, because then looking at data from across the country on a larger scale, I realized, and a lot of folks, you guys on this call, realize at the national level that it's not just specific to my story. Many students across the country, especially Black and Brown students, are always at downward trajectory when it comes to education in America. Our recent NAEP scores continues to show that Black students in America, they far way lower than their white peers in reading, in math, and civics. As you can see, 15, and this is out of 100, 15 students out of 100 are reading on grade level, 13 out of 100 are doing math on level, and 9 out of 100 are doing civics on level. These are very startling. And then you do a deeper dive in some of the other disparities amongst Black students in America. They're more likely to be in high poverty schools, more likely to be suspended and expelled from schools, and to have out of school suspension. All of these statistics are not the type of, not what I like to hear and read about when it comes to my culture and my background. I want to read about students not being involved in the criminal justice system. And that's the things that we hear and we see when school choice is involved. There have been 6 peer-reviewed studies on crime showing that crime is reduced when students have access to school choice, to alternative school options. The Brookings Institute found that 70% of males who don't graduate from high school will end up in prison. And Harvard and Princeton, out of all places, found that 100% of students who graduated from a charter school were 100 times less likely to end up in jail. And those are the type of stats. I want to read studies like the Urban Institute that found that students who participated in the Florida Tax Credit Scholarship Program, like I participated on in Florida, this was the scholarship program that I benefited from, were more likely to graduate from high school, more likely to go to college and graduate from college more than their public school counterparts. And I say that these are the type of messages, and this is what is possible when we champion Black Minds Matter. Also, school choice boosts entrepreneurship. So I have Black Minds Matter. We have the first ever online directory of Black owned schools. And we have about 270 so far of schools all across the country who've benefited from, most of them actually are operable because of choice programs. They're able to receive scholarship dollars or their charter schools. And so they have some type of funding coming from the state in order to operate their own schools. And this is an example of education entrepreneurship. We have Black owned businesses, essentially these schools who are founded by Black individuals. And this is very, very, very important because this is something that we're able, and I'll just keep using the same word, thanks Walter, weaponize this for those persons who don't support school choice, people who say that, they're opposed to choice options because maybe somehow it's racist, or, the reasons why people oppose school choice nowadays are just so baffling. But, one of the things that I shared on Twitter is that, in my district, my state senator, Audrey Gibson, she has over 20 Black owned schools in her district, and she does not support choice. She constantly does not support her constituents. And so this is something that's very powerful and a great messaging point when you are, out and about to see, how many schools are actually owned and operated by Black individuals. And then most of these schools, like I said before, have been able to be, to stay open because of choice programs. And you can't champion for Black owned schools if you're not champion for school choice. They're one and the same. You can't own a traditional public school. The only types of schools that you can own are schools of choice. And so I definitely encourage everyone to put that message out there. And then on the screen, I can send the article to you guys, but there's the title of it on the screen. It's The Secret History of School Choice and How Progressives Got There First by Dr. James Forman Jr. out of Yale. It's such a powerful peer-reviewed article. It's a historical article talking about the history of Black owned schools and how Black people have operated schools for a very long time, and how school choice is not anything new. And if someone tries to say that it's somewhat racist to support school choice, how that is wrong, how African Americans, even in the time of slavery, were owning, and I wouldn't say owning, but having their own schools, even while they were in pits. And so that's a very powerful resource I definitely recommend for folks to read at your own time. And, we have the winning message. This is not, it's winning on every level. And so this is clearly why we decided to go down this route of championing Black Minds Matter, especially within the African American community. Our latest polling results that we fresh off the press got in shows this is, the highest numbers constantly, it just keeps ticking up for school choice support. 73% of Black voters say that they support school choice. And that's amazing. And only 22% of voters said that their ideal learning environment is a public district school. Everyone else wants to send their kid to the school of their choosing. They want to send their kid to the school of their choosing. And this is Black voters. They said they don't want to send their kid to a district school. They would rather send their kid somewhere else. This is nationwide. Another, clear messaging point for when talking about voters is that here in the great state of Florida, where I'm from, it's no surprise. We've talked about this constantly over and over again that, sorry, I stopped sharing my screen. Okay, there we go. That in the gubernatorial election that Andrew Gillum and Ron DeSantis, sweeping support from African-American moms because he supported school choice options. And I see that Representative Donalds just joined us. So thanks so much. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and introduce him. Okay. Representative Donalds can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can definitely hear you.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for joining. And so I'll do a quick introduction. Representative Byron Donalds grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and he is the proud son of a hardworking and loving, single mother. His mother dedicated her life to instilling great values in him, and he graduated from Florida State University, receiving his bachelor's degree in finance and marketing. In January of 2020, Representative Donalds announced his congressional campaign live on Fox and Friends and won the Republican nomination for Florida District, the 19th Congressional District, in August of 2020. He lives in Naples, Florida with his wife and 3 sons, and he is a champion, a warrior for school choice options in the great state, and even founded a program for students. And so I'm gonna definitely dive into that, Walter and I. And so thanks so much for joining.
Listen, it's my pleasure, and really glad to be here with you guys. I know I'm running a little late. They call votes at the weirdest time in this place. Every now and again, votes just pop up when you're trying to do something else. But our job, is to push the button. Essentially, that's what our people sent us here to do. So it kind of messes with schedules in the middle of the day. So I'm glad for the introduction. That's awesome. I'll just tell you real briefly when it comes to school choice and academic opportunities. It's really rooted in the fact that, number one, everybody learns differently. Everybody doesn't learn the same way. Some people are math minds, some people are not. Some people learn through rote memorization. Some people learn through audio learning. Some people learn through just seeing it happen in front of them. Some people are concept minded. They don't really know the facts, but they understand concepts very well. And so I think it's important that students have the ability to find the academic environment that suits them best. I think if you have a real dynamic economy of education where there's many different outlets that people have the purchasing ability to access, 2 things will result. Number one, costs will actually come down in the education space, but also number 2, innovation and the dynamism of the actual education will increase, simply because every provider is like any other provider in any other market. They all want market share. They all want you to spend your money with them, and they want to be the dominant player. And that's really the beauty of competition. Competition works so many different places. it would definitely work in education, and that's what really the battle and the fight is for. Secondarily, the reason why being as supportive of school choice as I am is my mother fought for me when I was a little kid. When I was in public school for, that year, or really like 6 months, they wanted to put me on Ritalin and she wouldn't allow it. So she just wanted to make sure that she found the academic environment that would work for me. And she put me in a small Black private school in Brooklyn. And, the level of education was very, very high. History was a major part of it, specifically civil rights history, Jim Crow, Reconstruction, and slavery history was a big part of the curriculum there. And so I think that for me, it was a great environment to be in and start my formative years of learning. And I really think that, all parents want that opportunity for their children to just find that place where their child can be educated, nurtured, and really be the best that child can be. And so I'll stop there. Whatever question you guys have, I'll answer.
Well, that's amazing. I didn't know you went to a Black-owned school. I just got finished talking about how Black Minds Matter has the first ever directory of Black-owned schools in the country. So I gotta get the name of your school to put it on there.
They're closed now. So it was a long time ago, but it was a great environment to be in. I'm glad I was able to be there.
That's awesome. Well, talk to me a little bit about the Hope Scholarship Program in Florida. You kind of, came in full force for, with some very strong affirmatives that students should not experience harassment and bullying in school. And you led the charge to make sure that if students were experiencing those things, they didn't have to put up with it. So talk to me a little bit about how that all began and what gave you that unctioning.
So actually how it all came together was when I ran for the legislature, what I wanted to do was universal choice. That's what I wanted to do. It's what I still want to do in Florida. We're leaps and bounds ahead in front of the other states, the other 49 states. Like we're really in a strong progression going that way. I wanted to just come in and create the whole model. At the time I wanted to create it, our Supreme Court was not as, I would say, as friendly to school choice as it is today in the state of Florida. And so myself and Speaker Richard Corcoran, who's now the Secretary of Education in Florida, he kind of brought me in. He says, Byron, I know you want to do this, but let's start thinking a little bit more outside the box on other things we could do. And what came out of those conversations was the Hope Scholarship. And so what it did, like you described, is that it allows for children who were victimized in one of our schools, it really allows for their parents to get the information about what their educational options are, whether it's a charter school in a community, whether it's another public school they can go to, or it's either getting a voucher, a stipend, but however you want to phrase it, which is the Hope Scholarship, where you could take that to any private school of your choice. The reason why that's so, well, one side thing, how we funded it was with, we moved $105 of the sales tax associated with buying automobiles in our state. We moved that into a separate account that would fund the Hope Scholarship. So that's the funding mechanism. It's actually pretty robust. When I bought my son's car, the finance guy put the paper in front of me and I looked at it and I signed it and I told the guys like, hey, you know about this? He's like, yeah, it's in the packet. People are signing it all the time. I'm like, yeah, that's my bill. I did that. He was like, what? So anyway, full circle. But at any point, what we really wanted to do is make sure that parents have the information to access whatever is out there when their child is in a tough spot where they've been victimized. Anybody that's been beat up in class, stuff stolen from, even if you've had major bullying issues going on, one thing is consistent: the child either wants to avoid school altogether or avoid that subject matter. If they're doing that, then they're not actually focused on their academics. They're going to fall behind. And if a child falls behind, that has massive repercussions throughout their entire life from an economic perspective. And so we want to make sure parents have the information to kind of do whatever they think is in the best interest of their child. Because, when I explained this in a lot of the committees, and the Democrats would be against the bill, and a lot of them voted against the bill, what I would tell them is like, it's not just a decision of a parent to be like, I'm moving my child. Actually, most parents don't think that way. The first thing they're trying to figure out is what went wrong and how can we make the environment better. If that doesn't work out, then they start thinking about, okay, well, what do I have to do to help my child cope? If that doesn't work out, then the parent is kind of at the end of their line because they never had the opportunity to investigate the different opportunities that are existing or exist because this is happening in the middle of the school year. So we put it on the school districts to give that information to parents. And I think it's been well received and it's been a good thing for our state.
That's awesome. Yeah, I recently bought a car maybe a year and a half ago, and I was such a proud moment to sign my name to say, yes, I want my sales tax to go to the Hope Scholarship. Very innovative, I must add. And congratulations, because it's really making a difference in the great state.
Yeah, Congressman, this is Walter Blanks here with AFC, and you touched on this a little bit. You talked about bullying in schools and students having a hard time in that kind of environment, and everything you said was exactly my childhood in the public school system. And so, switching gears a little bit here, tell us a little bit about where you send your kids to school. You also mentioned before that not every child learns differently, even within a household. So being a big school choice supporter, tell us about some of the things that your kids are doing and why you have them where they are now and the importance of that.
So it's been different for each one of them. My oldest son, he was in public elementary school. Then he went to a public charter school that I helped create. It was a classical charter school. And then he went to a private high school. And so he's had 3 different environments. And it wasn't really about whether it was public or charter or private. It was really about what is the academic rigor that's going to help him be successful. Like my son is like me, he's a math brain. So a highly dense and challenging mathematical curriculum was important to us for him. My middle son, he actually was I gotta think about him. He's been in more schools than the oldest. I gotta think back about his record. But he's been he started in public elementary school. It did not work out for him. He went to a private classical school. Then he went to the charter school, and now he's at private school. Actually, the same school that my oldest went to. My youngest son, he was started at the charter school, and that wasn't the right environment. One of my other 2 sons went to, and he's actually in public school right now. And so each child, what we've had to do is not just look at it and say, well, your brother went to school there, your other brother went to school, so this is where you're going. Each child, we had to look at what was in the best interest, whether it was the social environment, the academic environment, the cultural environment, and try to find out which environment was best, not just for their academic needs, but also for their character needs as a human being. And I think that if parents are empowered, if they have the purchasing power to make those decisions, it would actually be better for them overall, but better for all children overall.
Thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate your support and your innovative thinking in the school choice space, and it fits so much into the Black Minds Matter conversation. We really appreciate you.
Listen, thanks for having me, and thanks for being patient with the schedule today, guys. I really appreciate it. You have a good one. Burgess, good seeing you in your little box, man. Good seeing you, man. See you guys.
Thank you, Congressman Donalds. Everyone, as you see, we have a special guest that has joined us today, Representative Burgess Owens. He is the congressman of Utah's 4th Congressional District, grew up in the South, a huge advocate for school choice, and he sits on the Ed and Labor Committee. I'm going to ask you to unmute, and Congressman Burgess, please give us any remarks you have. We are so honored to have you, and thank you so much for being here.
Hello, guys. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes,
let me just start off by saying this. I am so proud of what you guys are doing. I'm going to give you a little bit of my history. This happens to be my passion, by the way. This is of all the things that I've thought of as important and committees I want to be part of before knowing anything else. It was about education. So what you're doing right now is going to make a remarkable difference. You're going to give hope to so many young people who just have not been given hope who can understand that they can overcome anything. So I want to thank you for that. Real quick history. By the way, I am so proud to serve with Byron. We come from a different, I guess, bookend, where he grew up with a single mom in Brooklyn, New York. I grew up back in the days of segregation, where Black families were very, very strong. We had mom and dad, where education was everything, where business ownership was everything. I'm gonna give you a little bit of history on that, because I want you to know that my history is your future. I want you to know that. My history of a proud community that was all about meritocracy, it was all about showing that they could command respect. That was what I grew up in, and that's where you guys are taking our community once again. So I want to thank you for that. Just know you have an advocate that's all in. I am the ranking committee, I'm ranking member of the pre-K through 12. So we're trying to find ways to make sure that our young people can experience, Denisha, what you just talked about, being able to, no matter where your background, where your family is coming from, you can dream bigger than that and really show other people the message that we can give to each other. The most important 9 words that one American can give to the other is, if I can do it, you can do it. And that's actually what you guys are experiencing and pulling off. So real quick background. I grew up in the 60s, days of KKK, Jim Crow, and segregation. And I say that to set up the truth of the fact that we had a community that took all the obstacles we had in front of us and made the very best of it. We were not assimilating across our country, just like the Italian community, the Polish community. At that time, our country was not there yet, but yet every community believed, number one, in our country. We believe in meritocracy. We believe this is the greatest country in the history of mankind to grow in and to overcome. And because of the tenets that my community grew up in, by the way, the tenets that came out of Booker T. Washington, if you have not read Up From Slavery, please, it's a must read. It took me way too long to read that book, Up From Slavery, Booker T. Washington. The tenets he taught us, and what you guys are focused on right now, is family, faith, the free market, and education. Those 4 tenets will literally, no matter where you come from, how long you've been in this country, which language you speak, you tie into those tenets and be a good person, the best you can be. Middle class is literally 1 generation or less away, period, no matter who you are. So based on those four tenets, my community led our country in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. These are things you're not being taught, and thank goodness for school choice. We'll be able to teach our kids these things once again. My community led our country in the growth of the middle class, men matriculating for college, men committed to marriage over 70%, and percentage of entrepreneurs over 40%. Now, 40% of business ownership and people thinking outside the box and educating themselves and being able to find innovative ways to become better and better allowed 50 to 60% of Black Americans in the 60s to be part of the middle class. I want you guys to let that resonate. We had more people in the middle class than not in the Black community. This is from DC to Tallahassee to Texas to California. It didn't matter where they were. We wanted to win. I went to the University of Miami. I was the 3rd Black American to go to the University of Miami on a scholarship. Guess what my major was? Biology. I went there to graduate with a marine biology degree because, number one, I had a dad who was a professor at Florida A&M, which is right there in Tallahassee. Byron mentioned he came out of Florida State. Well, when I was growing up, Florida State was still a segregated school, but yet Florida A&M was a school that was so proud of their success and what they were doing. And my dad was a professor there, so I would go there in the summers to work in his laboratory. So for me to become a marine biologist was just a matter of work, effort. And anybody who told us we could not, we doubled down to make sure that they knew that they were wrong, period. I spent 4 years in the library at University of Miami because somebody in high school told me I couldn't do it. And I tell you, that community I grew up with, that's all we need to hear. So I wanted to say that because all it comes down to is dealing and addressing those 73% of Black families who understand what this is all about. And by the way, those 22%, they don't get it because their families probably already are in good public school systems. There's something called lack of empathy. And those are not going to be our advocates. Those are not going to be the people who move us forward. Those are the elitists that have always been the problem for the Black community. And what we have to do is for those politicians who cannot look at the Black community and say, these kids need a chance. They need to be able to think. They need to be able to have questions, ask the questions why. And they need to know our history to know that we should be proud of everything we've gone through. If we don't have politicians to understand that, My friends, we need to vote them out, period. They don't represent us. And by the way, I cannot wait to get this presentation. I'm learning so much that I want to be able to add to what I'm doing. And I can promise you this, in 18 months, when we're back in office, when we're back in control, you guys will be the first, one of the first groups I want to bring in front of our committee to testify to the power of this process. So, so anyway, I wanted to just say that. I think you can understand my passion is for this area. Again, I didn't know anything about what I was going to do in terms of committees, other than I want to be on the Ed and Labor Committee because of these kind of conversations. My other committee that I'm very passionate about is small business ownership. Once you begin to control your mind, to dream big, to be innovative, guess what the next step is going to be? I want to own, period. I want to own my life. I want to own my car. I want to own my home. That ownership is part of who we are. It's life, liberty, pursuit of property is what the founders initially meant. Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness truly was property. So once we can think and know that we can control, everything else falls from that. So that being said, I think I've kind of run over time here with my passion. So let me see if you have any questions. I would love to answer it. And just know that literally you have a #1 advocate with me. Anything I can do, any way I can give you guys a presence, a voice, a platform, I'm all in.
Congressman Owens, wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I guess we will take this time to open up the questions. So I'm allowing people to unmute themselves so we can go ahead and start with our Q&A. Any questions for our
Can I
speaker?
also add one thing that you said, Congressman Owens, that, you know, got me thinking, and one thing I do want to leave the group with when it comes to messaging around school choice. And, you know, all of this is just giving you more tools in the tool chest to, like, you know, try to get the message over to convince that 22% that you're just on the wrong side. Is that, you know, like Congressman Owens was saying, is that, you know, when we talk about ownership and true empowerment, the Black-owned school directory is your message there. You know, we've all, you know, when it comes to minorities in general, there's always a push in the traditional system and traditional district schools to try to convince more minorities to become teachers. And so we have this shortage, you know, Black-owned teachers, or Black teachers, we need more Black males in the classroom. Well, you know, a pushback to that is, well, if we really want to seek true empowerment, we're not just going to employ Black people or minorities to come teach in the classroom. We're going to empower them to own their own classrooms. And so that's a very, you know, stark contrast if you want to try to, you know, change that conversation. We're not just talking about employing more minorities. No, we're talking about empowering them to own and operate their own schools.
Can I just say this, guys? We now, and I believe that 2020, we're gonna look back on this and realize the silver lining. You know, we're a country that thrives on contrast. You know, we become better. When we were attacked on Pearl Harbor, we just realized what happened, and we had to go out there and fight this enemy without. At 9/11, we woke up and realized, you know, we need to do more than what we've done in the past. 2020 is gonna be the same way. We're having conversations on both sides of the aisle, good Democrats, good Republicans, good independents. Finally, what is it gonna take to make sure our kids are getting what they need to compete and to succeed? We're also recognizing that there's an ideology out there that hates everything that we stand for. They hate education, they hate ownership of property, they hate the fact there's a God in heaven, that we can talk about him. So just know that this is a good time for us, and what you're doing right now, you truly do represent the future of our nation. So to have young people with the boldness, the confidence, the articulation that you have is inspirational to anybody who listens. So just know the next 18 months, we're going to be in a position where we can have these conversations and be truly innovative this time around. To start giving an opportunity for, I think we should find a way for the best teachers, and this might be just a way that we can put grants from the federal government to the states. The best teachers should be paid more than the worst teachers. You know, in every occupation, the best make a lot of income, the worst get fired. Well, that's what the most important product we have in our country is, our kids. If we can't put that same air of meritocracy to our teaching our kids, we're missing the mark. So we need to rethink the way we look at our educators. My mom and dad were educators. I'm telling you guys, they were all in. They loved it. The light will come in their eyes when they saw the kids learning stuff across the board. Those are the kind of people we need to be encouraging to come into this occupation, respecting them, and giving them opportunity to truly stay within this industry because they can afford to do that. No matter how many kids they have, they can afford to stay here because they're just that good that they make more money than those who want to be, who are not stepping up to the plate. So look forward to, and just be as creative as you can be. So the next 18 months, we can start having these plans. I don't just say this. I want to be in a position 18 months, not to just talk about what difference we can make, but to pull the trigger. To have conversations now that we put in place those kind of policies and legislation that it's just a matter now. Once we get the majority, we pull the trigger, we get this thing done with, and we move forward instead of having to spend another year or two just talking about it again. Enough talk. Every year we waste in talking, we're losing kids to hopelessness. We cannot afford to do that anymore.
Absolutely. We have one question in the chat. The question is from Mr. Jacquees Thompson. I hope I said your name right. And it is, do you think the system developed in Florida is easily replicated in other states, or do you think it's just tailored to Florida? And I believe he's talking about kind of the school choice education system that they have out there.
It's replicated, it's replicatable. We're doing the same thing in Utah, by the way. And again, I grew up in Tallahassee, Florida, went to the University of Miami, spent time up in Northeast, up in the Philadelphia area. And what I found, I didn't know, I didn't understand how open Florida had become until just recently in terms of choice. I'm so excited about that. Well, we have the same options here in Utah. What we have to do is put in place legislators who buy into it. Legislators who say that because it is, quote, disruptive to the system, we will not allow kids to grow, need to be doing something else. This is not their profession. Anyone who says we cannot disrupt the system, but we will allow kids to continue to fail is not who we should have in office. So we're going to be changing that narrative, my friends, because we now have a time in which we're talking like we never have before. Let me just make this point. In the past, you've had people who've been very sympathetic to this message. I've been talking this for decades. It's choice. Well, they say, yeah, I understand it, but guess what? They can put their kids in the right public school system, the right zip code, so they can actually do anything they want to and not really deal with the issues. 2020 has allowed parents from all across the board to say, you know what, you mean I cannot put my kids in school? I don't have a choice. I'm stuck in a place where people are getting paid and I'm not my kids not being taught. This is across all the income levels. That conversation is now happening in a way that we're going to get something done. So just know that we're not alone now. We have empathy across the board from every American who had kids that were stuck in these systems and moving backwards. So get ready for some good times. We need to now have these conversations. Make sure you're reaching out to my office to give me any ideas you have so we can have these conversations so that literally in 2022, we are putting together the first day legislation that we can get passed in the House and then passed in the Senate and move forward to make sure we're making changes.
That's awesome.
Do we have any more questions in the audience? This is the time you can unmute yourself. Oh, we just got another question. How can we best get the message out that school choice is a benefit to students? And I believe that's to all three of you all.
Can I just say this? I think what you're doing is exactly what we need to do. It's really about education. There are going to be people, have to understand, people in that 22%, it doesn't matter what you say, what message you give, they're already okay with them. Their kids are okay. And for them, they're okay because they get the power from getting people, and there's a power, by the way, that's part of people being miserable, being ignorant, and not having conversations. There's a power that some people get from that. They get votes. They stay in office forever. If you have people that are thinking, asking those questions why, and expecting a result, then those representatives have to stand up and make a change, or they have to find something else to do. So I think what you're doing right now is a big part of it. I also think it's important to be politically active. And I don't care what side of the aisle we're on. If there are people who say they are for choice, they stand for choice, then we need to support them any way we can. anyone, I don't care what their name is, how long they've been around, how great their reputation is, if they're for keeping poor kids poor and miserable, they need to be out of office. Let them do something else in life, but not represent us in Congress. So that's what I'll suggest. Be engaged, continue to do what you're doing right now. I cannot say how powerful what you're doing is to me, to hear that young people like yourself that are standing this way. So it's very, very important to keep that up, and then allow people like myself, like Byron, to find out ways we can help give you a platform and help in other ways that we can do so.
And I would just suggest, as far as Black Minds Matter, go to the website, blackmindsmatter.net. There's a toolkit, some social media graphics on there, the logos that you can download and use at your free will. If you're talking to Black people specifically about school choice options, definitely, use some of the signage that is on the website to your advantage. And you can use the logo on materials and on pretty much anything you want. Even if you're not African American, I definitely encourage you to. And to just use all of the wording, the messaging. You'll find some of, instead of saying school choice, quite often we'll say education freedom to fit into that heartfelt messaging that fits right along with all of our other liberation movements, even that liberating Black mind. And so some of those languages, especially when you're talking with the African American community, is a pull. And quite often the ownership piece is quite powerful when you talk about owning your own anything within the African American community. That's always been the goal. That's always the hope of pretty much any and everything. And so I definitely encourage you to use that when talking about school choice options and being Black owned, Black founders and that stuff. You'll also find success stories on our website of students, parents, and educators who've benefited from school choice options. And so those impact stories are quite powerful. And Walter also talked about the Voices for Choice initiative. There are over 700 stories on voicesforchoice.net of the same students, parents, and educators who've benefited from school choice. And so it's not a case like Congressman Owens was saying that people are not supporting this. People are supporting it, and the support continues to rise. 73% of Black voters support school choice today. And so it continues to rise. And that's something you can also say.
Do we have
Hi,
any
Denisha?
more? Oh, yeah, perfect.
Yeah, this is Jennifer Daniels. Can you hear me?
Jennifer, you still there? Did we lose her?
Denisha, this is Jennifer Daniels with USCCB. Can you hear me?
Hey, Jennifer, yeah.
Hi, I'm so sorry I'm calling on audio, got internet issues, but I just wanted to highlight for everyone that this week the DC Opportunity Scholarship Program, our only federal school choice program, is being debated and discussed in the Appropriations Committee, and all knives are out, coming out trying to destroy this program. They've put language in the appropriations bill trying to limit access for schools to participate, trying to limit new students from coming in the program, and in fact, just trying to end the program altogether. So while we're excited about the potential of a majority in a couple years and new big things, I want to encourage our congressional friends and staffers to pay close attention to the DC Opportunity Scholarship Program as it progresses through the House and the Senate this year, because it's really vital to the almost 2,000 children in that program that the funding at a minimum stays level and they don't do anything to damage participation in the program going forward. And of course, it is a majority African American served program, and all of these children are coming from families with an average income of $24,000 per family. And they are looking for an opportunity to change the direction of their lives by getting access into the school of their choice. So this is a really urgent issue that we need all eyes paying attention to right now. Thanks.
Can I add to that? First of all, I'm very aware back when President Obama first came in, the very first act that he put in place was to end the DC voucher program. And at the time, 93% of Black kids, there was 1,800 of them every year, 93 were not only graduating, but moving on, many were moving on to college. It was supported by local Democrats, independents, and of course, Republicans. They ended it anyway. So I look at the carnage, the damage that those kids had to go back to failing schools because we had a party who did not want for any reason for them to progress and continue to grow. So we're fighting this, and just know that you have a party, the Republican Party has been fighting for choice forever. We understand freedom, we understand education. So just know that this is not only, it's a fight that's really tough now, unfortunately, because we're in the minority, but your voices do count. And as we now go this process through, and by the way, I want to make sure, Denisha, that I'm putting your information, Black Minds Lives Matter, on my social media. Whatever we can expose that, we're gonna do that. And Walter, if you have something also we can use, my goal very simple, it's all about an education from the very beginning. So when it comes down to topics like this, I know what the other party has done to our race for a long, long time. And we need to get back to understanding how great we have been. By the way, just so you know, 40% of business ownership that I grew up in is now down to 3.8%. I want you to understand the difference in those two is why we have the lack of empowerment, lack of young kids coming out and seeing business ownership that they can maybe one day be part of and maybe be mentored with. So 40% of Black business ownership in the 60s to now 3.8% is what we need to change. And that all comes down to educating ourselves and know that we can do it. So I want to make that point.
We have any other questions? We have about 4 minutes left.
Someone asked a really great question in the chat, saying, wouldn't lower income classes school choice be restricted to mainly public due to affordability? And that's a really great question. And the answer is no. Most, if not, I guess it's probably split 50-50 of the school choice programs that are enacted serves either low-income students or students with special needs. And so those are those are the two populations that most choice programs target. We hope, like Congressman Donalds was talking about, where we'll have universal choice one moment in time. But for right now, most of the programs that are implemented, other than the innovative ones like his program for bullied students, are serving lower income students and students with special needs. So great question. And I'm putting my contact information and all of how to get in touch with me in the chat in case folks want to learn more.
I'm going to just give my little final comments here. And again, I have Alex, who's actually staffing this. Make sure that you know how to reach out to me. Let me just say this to all who are listening and those who will hear this in the future. This is an American issue. It's not black and white. It's what we do best. What made our country great, and it continues to, is that we have a nation that always look to make sure our kids have a much taller shoulders to stand on. We believe in sacrificing to make sure our children live a much better life than we do. We get excited when we wake up one day and find our kids are running circles around us because they're succeeding. That's who we are. This is an American issue, just like it was with the Civil War, the civil rights. All those things come down to coming together and working to make sure that our kids are being educated. So let's make sure that we reach across the line in every way we possibly can. This is, again, something has no bearing in terms of party line or a color or whatever. It's about making sure that all of our children live in a society that they can truly look at each other in a way that they can see the very best. And that happens when we're educated and we're communicating, we're talking, and we get past all the exterior stuff that that some people love us to get involved with. So thank you guys so much. I'm gonna bail out at this point. Thanks for everything you do. Know that again, you have a strong advocate in me. Whatever we can do to help out, and we look forward to once we get back into majority to pull the trigger on policies that'll make sure that every child, no matter what their zip code, what their background, what they speak, the language they speak, have an opportunity to live their American dream. And that's the best gift we can give to anyone that lives in this nation. Okay, so just want to put that out.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank
guys.
you so much, Congressman Owens. We really appreciate you, all your support, and we look forward to working with you. And thank you, Alex, for even letting you know about this so you could join us today.
Thank you, my friends. Look forward to working with you very, very closely. Let's make it happen. It's good to see you, Bob.
Great.
Take care.
Denisha, Walter, can you offer some final comments before we get on out of here?
Yeah, of course. Denisha, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, I just want to thank everyone for joining. You can learn more about Black Minds Matter by visiting our website at blackmindsmatter.net. I do want to emphasize that this is a free-for-all. It's a resource for, our education reform space. So if you're looking to push the needle forward, please use the logo, use the language. It's here for you as a resource. And let me know how it can help.
Yeah, and just piggybacking off of what Denisha said, she has spearheaded this thing, and I'm so proud of how far this has come in this short amount of time. But it's really good work. It's amazing work, and it's life-changing work. And so the work continues, and we have to keep the child at the center of the conversation, regardless of whatever it is that we're talking about. And so make sure all of you go follow her on Twitter. She's been taking over Twitter and causing waves and making people angry. So she's doing a really, really good job with this. And so onward and upward, and looking forward to everyone continuing this work and continuing to change the lives of children across the country.
Absolutely. Thank you all, Denisha and Walter, and everyone who joined us today for coming to our event to introduce you all to American Federation for Children's Black Minds Matter and having this critical discussion with us, this new discussion and topic on school choice. So we look forward to continuously working with you all of those that are part of the Congressional School Choice Caucus, all of those who are a part of the Education and Innovation Opportunity Caucus. We are just so grateful for all the work you all are doing and continuing to push the needle